All right, well, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. I know it's been a long day, I'm sure, if you spent your time with students or at your own job here, so I really appreciate your time. And I just want to welcome you to our second meeting of our bi-weekly webinar series. This is the second session that we are having for the Lieutenant Governor's Computing Challenge, which is the theme of coding for good. So you all know about the challenge, which is why you're here. And hopefully you didn't miss out on the first webinar, but if so, that is recorded and up on our website. But not to take away any more time from this evening, I want to turn it over right away to our presenters this evening. Although they did just briefly introduce themselves, we do have an excellent showing here from the Connecticut Computer Science Teachers Association, and two of the members, namely the president, Jackie Coricelli, and the secretary, Sean Drzezinski Tobin, are going to present to you tonight Design for Success and how to best support your students, whether they're in an after-school club, in a class, or in the Girl Scouts or like organization. I think you'll find the steps that they have will lead your team to success, as well as provide you with that comfort level that maybe you don't have quite yet, and realize that all of us can do this and be successful. So with that in mind, I'm going to just turn it over with the quick understanding or statement that we are welcoming questions and we'll have time for questions and answers at the end, but you are more than welcome to put things into the chat, or if you feel that you want to voice your question, we're just going to kind of roll with it. But if you'd like to place them in the chat, I'll keep an eye on that as the presentation happens. So with that, I'll turn that over to Jackie, if you'd like to start.
Awesome. Yeah, no, Sean and I are so excited to be able to help and present. Personally, I find that one of the greatest challenges is to help students to be able to come up with an idea that's truly their own. And that's where the heart of this presentation came from. This was truly a team effort. Sean and I designed this together, and so we're presenting it together. We really hope it'll help you. We broke the process down into 8 steps, and Sean and I will break it down by her handling the odds and I'll handle the evens. So we'll go back and forth so you won't hear the same voice for multiple slides. Again, we hope it really helps.
So I'm going to talk about step 1. I'm so sorry in advance. I had like dental work done today, so if I sound funny, it's the best. So the first part is probably the hardest for kids to conceptualize, and it's literally identifying a problem. I heard someone on the call has done work with the Invention Convention, and as an Invention Convention student and teacher of that, I totally get that that's one of the biggest things, and that's one of the things that actually drew me into this. So you have to start kids thinking about what truly is a problem, and how do you know when you're facing a problem? And you can give them a definition, but that's not always successful, especially since a problem to one person might not be a problem to everyone. So one of the things you can do is give them examples and helping them to gain that empathy of design and saying, how is this a problem? For whom it might be a problem? And why is it different? So perhaps a cat looking at you is not necessarily a problem. However, if you're a fish, that's a different perspective. And getting them to think about what is a problem for them and what could be a problem for other people. You're good. So we have made different resources and different worksheets and different graphic organizers for you. They are all linked inside the presentation, and I believe the slide deck is linked in the chat as well. And the first idea here is to brainstorm 5 ideas. So I made one that's a little more elementary friendly in terms of writing space. It's a little less condensed, and it could be printed. The idea here is to brainstorm just things that might be a problem, literally. And then from that, having that discussion with the class, sharing with people. And now write down one idea that you didn't think of. That should give you 6. And then pick one that was the most interesting to you that you can think about and that you want to study, and getting them to just hear and listen and collaborate, especially with the team component of this, is really essential. So not just having that understanding of a problem, but understanding how this could be cooperatively approached. And then we continue this further using some of the language you will find in the NGSS standards, as well as in Common Core standards, about what you can observe. What does this tell you that needs to be solved? How do you know this? What are you hearing? And from there, making inferences about what could be answers to this problem and walking them through this process.
So for me, I think it doesn't matter whether we're talking about high school, middle, or elementary school. I feel like for all populations, the hardest thing for them to do is to not go right to coding, and to pause and plan. And so I think what you'll find is that this entire structure is to help them to get ready for coding. You'll notice I'm not talking about coding at all, just getting them ready. Sean walked us through how to just simply decide that something's a problem. Then the next phase, and I think is extremely important, is to involve other perspectives. Students themselves don't know all the answers, and I think it's really important for them to practice looking to others to figure out how they're affected too, partly so that they're able to, as Sean said, use the word empathize. So they're able to empathize with others and realize that, hey, they've got perspectives that they should be able to be hearing too. So first, they've chosen a problem. Now we want to help them to be able to talk to people and gather information, things that they may not know about how the problem impacts them on a daily basis. What kind of people should you choose? People that know stuff about the problem, like anybody that works in the area, people that have been affected, and then people from different backgrounds. It's really important for students to choose somebody who ideally would see things that are different from them. Now I have a couple of students right now. My students are in the middle of planning their create task. They're walking through exactly this process, maybe with a little less scaffolding, but same ideas. We'll spend the first week just planning. And already some students said, hey, I'm not really sure quite who to interview. And I said, that's okay. If you can find one human to talk to, that's great. You could talk to your friends, etc. Or you can talk to someone maybe that you wouldn't, but of course in this current climate, it's difficult to find somebody that you wouldn't normally run into. And so some of them were asking, could I maybe just go to YouTube and find an expert there, and where they maybe were interviewed and figure out the issues that they're having? Absolutely. So that's a really creative solution. Love that. Another option might be to also shop like online blogs, things like that. People might use those to identify issues that they're having. So your students will come up with creative solutions for how to interview people, but I do think it's important for them to hear different perspectives. There are some interview notes. Now, if I click this, are you able to see the link to the journal? Awesome. Okay, so you'll be able to see that Sean built this out. It's gorgeous. You can interview. There's all of these resources. Feel free to use them, adopt them, whatever. We created this for you. Research the causes, etc. So all of the information we're talking through here is available in those notes. Asking questions like, again, what do you know about the problem? Why are you an expert? Why is this a problem for you? What do you think could cause the problem, etc. These are questions. By putting these questions here, we're trying to guide students who may not know the right questions to ask as they're interviewing people. And then finally, after you gather all those resources together, the important and perhaps the most important part is to think about, what did you learn from those interviews? Put it all together in collabs. Again, why is the problem actually a problem? How are people impacted by the problem? And then what are some causes for the problem? And students will need that for the next step.
And so the idea of breaking it down and deconstructing it also lets you spread it out over multiple days. So these could be you could probably, if you try hard enough, put them all in one day and make it happen. But realistically, we're all going to be chunking this. So the hope here is that you have smaller, more manageable chunks, and you can see a break in the process to save us all, because craziness. So for step 3, we're looking to investigate some of the causes and looking at ways to solve your problem. And so we're taking that research the next step. This is critical for so many standards, such as incorporating evidence, generating claims, explaining your reasoning. And we're trying to make sure that that language is consistent in everything we use. So part of this is also the validity of sources. We need to make sure that the information is reputable and good, and it's not just, someone's tweet or someone's Facebook post. It's getting them to look at and value their sources, which is a great way to discuss this and really get them into the research part that they would need to do for any major undertaking. So we've also included this in a log. We have 2 different logs as well. We have one that's more scaffolded for like middle school to high school, and then one that's a lot more independent as well. Those are all linked and included for you. And this is a new way to just start gathering them, giving them this opportunity, and to really just build out on what they know. Like a lit review. Oh, sorry, can you just go back? And then the end goal of this is to come up with 5 possible solutions. And these need to do one of the 3 things, one of our goals, which is to spread positive messages, tackle important issues, and or promote healthy habits. And these solutions need to be derived from data and evidence. So we're making our claim, we're giving our evidence, we're supporting it, using our evidence to support it with our reasoning. And they have to keep track of what inspired each solution and what led them to that point.
So again, remember whether it's grades 3 or 4 and 5, and perhaps they won't go on to code, or they're in grade 12 and they're going to complete that development challenge and be excited for more at the end, perhaps even, and everything in between. All students need to learn how to plan, and that's sort of the point of this whole presentation. So we'll continue on the journey with step 4 to research the causes. And the way I explain problems to students is they're like weeds in the garden. And if all you do is take off the leaves that you can see, then the weed will come right back because the root cause is still there. And so the leaves are the evidence to us that there's something there that shouldn't be, that we want to remove. And then the roots are the causes. And really, when they're solving a problem, they could choose to just do the evidence, but it wouldn't fully solve the problem as much as the causes would. So if they could get one of each, or ideally more than one of the causes, they're closer to solving the problem. So the next step, this step, is drilling them down and helping them to be able to think about the problem, not the solution, but the problem in a little more detail, thinking about what is the evidence and what are the causes. Again, according to the research, coming back to their research always, to be able to make sure that what they're grounding this in is not opinion or a tweet, like Sean said, but instead grounded in actual facts that they learned from talking to others and researching.
So then we finally bring them to the point where they've considered different sources, they've looked at solutions, and now they need to start narrowing it down to the one solution, their one idea. And looking at all they've accomplished, they're going to try to find 3 causes to this. And one of the things that when you're looking at data and digitization, you have to make sure that this is something that can help people, and making sure that the design matches and the target directive is met in this solution. So this requires intervention, this requires conversation and discussion and explanation. So having them have that research is really critical to support this idea and to make sure that it's an appropriate solution for the challenge and for the task at hand. And so part of this is something that as educators or as anyone in the field, we know that we have to give them checkpoints and rubrics, and getting them to reflect on their own solution is part of this. And this idea of reflection and perseverance and problem solving and self-regulating that problem solving, which is so critical to social emotional learning, is we're trying to embed it in this as well. So they need to look at, how do they know their solution is working? What would it look like? What would a fixed problem look like? And having those options be considered before they even jump into solving. So then we walk them through coming up with just 8 ideas that could be solutions, anything that they can think of. It doesn't have to be great. You could tell me that the problem is it's raining and you're going to find a unicorn. It's not a great solution. But but you can also interrogate, why would you come up with that? Why would you pick that? What kind of, like, if you think it's mystical, why would you go to that route? Okay, what are we not understanding? And you can get some really good dialogue and feedback here. And then they look at what they've listed. Do they notice any similar solutions? What are the themes that they are running through without? How is this evidence? What is this gearing them towards? And getting them away from the research into putting that together and synthesizing that into their own idea. And then pick your 3 favorite, most realistic solutions from that list, and explaining why they're your favorites. Why are they different? What makes them unique and not like anything out there? These solutions can't just be the same thing that have been out there, because then you're just taking someone else's solution. We're looking to distinguish them and to really make sure that it's evaluated as a unique sympathetic cause. And from there, they're going to complete a CER. For those of you who are not familiar with the format, it is giving their claim, citing the evidence directly, and supporting the reasoning. It's used a lot in NGSS, and really just defending that solution in this one point.
So finally, all that work, they have a solution. But I think prior to, and this is something that I've never seen in any planning guide. I've done quite a few, like Sean was saying, the invention conventions was mentioned, a little bit of First Lego League Junior. I was a coach. I've never actually seen this piece. So this I think seminar makes this seminar a little bit unique. So I think one of the most important, and maybe one of the most difficult things, is we need to really think about, in your solution, is it truly fair for everybody? So this part of the journal will walk students through looking at their solution critically and saying whose needs might not be met with that solution. And would it be possible to tweak that solution to include more people than are currently being included? So again, in the journal, there's a piece to reflect. Consider how you can make it available to everybody and be useful and helpful to all people to the best of your ability. What might need to be changed, and how is changing your solution better for everybody? An example, if you're using app development or an app inventor as an app development tool, would be if somebody were using the tool and couldn't hear and couldn't see, could you make it touch screen activated so it would speak to you instead about the directions? And then could the person interact by shaking the device or pressing buttons on the side of the phone? And again, making it a little bit more accessible for people.
Of that piece, that was what really drew me to it. So well done, Jackie. Part 7 just gives us our log and our working log, and it's setting a start date and backwards engineering from the time that you have, setting realistic goals. So having students say, well, you know what, let's meet this out and make sure that we have everything. Being flexible enough with the due dates for them to accommodate for unplanned events like snow days or worse, and having very specific, measurable, like a SMART goal, for lack of better terms, as I use that and I cringe. And then from that, they get to look at their own progress. Did they meet everything? Did they do their part? Did they meet their goal? And this is a great way to use it as an exit ticket. So you get that social emotional reflection piece in as well. So that check-ins with the students. If you didn't meet your goal, how could you meet your goal? What was different? What can you change? And getting them to really interrogate the process as well.
Okay. So again, step 8, and I love how Sean put, might not always be step 8, but frankly, whenever you need help, ask. And I think this is an important step, but I also think it's important to say to students, I often say to my students that help, it's a leap of faith on both ends. It requires both people to be willing to give. There's the giver of help, the person who notices someone needs help and is willing to give it. But then there's the other side to that coin where a person needs to be ready and able to receive it too. Both people need to be a little bit vulnerable in order to give or receive help. And so I think coaching students on how to ask for help, not just from you, but from each other, although I know it's difficult a little bit right now, can be hugely helpful. Again, people you can ask for help, but I also think as students get older and as they get more comfortable with each other, they can also speak with each other too. Um, Again, sometimes just a matter of you speaking out loud, what is the problem you're having? I don't know if you've ever experienced that. Just, this is the issue I'm having. I don't know how to, oh, yes, I do. Just simply because you start saying it out loud, a light bulb goes off and you're ready to keep going. I think something just restarting the brain and restating a problem can really, really help. And we together developed these resources. Sean made this gorgeous tool to be able to help you to make a foldable if you like foldables. This is a pretty neat tool that kind of walks you through the journal log. There's a Google Doc version. Remember, Computer Science Teachers Association, we're here to help. And then these are all the standards that we think that were covered in part, or in some ways a lot. And really, this was a fun project. I don't want to speak for Sean, but this was a really fun project for me doing this with her. We had this little gem of an idea, and it was really, we appreciate so much this excuse to turn it into this something bigger, and we really hope it was helpful to you.
I wasn't sure if you had something else that you were going to
No,
say.
I don't think so. I was going to pause for Sean in case she has something more to say.
Oh, no, I thought you were gonna, I'm sorry, I was just trying to be polite. No,
No, as was I.
I echo everything Jackie said. I think it's exciting to have students engaged in so many different grade levels from across the state on something that could be very unifying and really just positive.
Yes.
And I know that it's daunting. I totally get it, and that we all have way too much on our plates.
Mm-hmm.
So anything we can do to help.
I think what you two ladies have just outlined for everyone here is an amazing tool. It's like a turnkey solution to helping students work through this. And that the fact that you focused so much on the importance of planning. I know as part of the development committee, we tried to see what sort of things could we ask students to produce that was evidence of planning, because we wanted to, drive home that it's such an important piece. So I really appreciate how you taking your little gem of an idea and putting it in the hands and sharing it with all of us. So I think it's absolutely great. I want to see if there's any questions or comments that we do have from, I know that some people are talking in the chat, but I want to provide an opportunity for anybody here to speak out and ask questions, or talk to Jackie or Sean about their development of this. Of course, we can also ask questions about the challenge in general,
Yes.
but we'd like to address anything that's related directly to this amazing step-by-step scaffolded journal that's ready to rock. So thank you. So is there anyone that has a question that they would like to share? I see that there's a question here that's asking, is this outline something that they'll need to turn in for their submission? No, this outline is a guide for you as either a teacher or community leader, because this is open to all of Connecticut youths and youth organizations as well. So there are teachers that are very comfortable with this process, but there are also community organizers, parents of maybe just a student who's a cohort D student and at home. So Jackie and Sean and I'm assuming there was other people that put into the effort there, is so they provide them with a guide in order to be able to provide that support. Because I think Jackie hinted at the beginning, like sometimes it's really hard for us to kind of step back, right? And let the students produce the work without giving our ideas. I find myself struggling all the time with that.
When I talk to teachers, that is the number one thing, even for as old as high school students, preparing them for the create performance task and APCS principles. It's the same issue. How, I would really love to provide them with a list. Nope, you should not do that. You should not provide them with a list. We want to make sure that the solutions are coming from the students, from their heart and from their minds. And so that's where the idea for this came from, was how can I help teachers to be able to help kids to find their own solutions.
Yeah, and I think also questioning, always, maybe using more of the Socratic approach, right? And always questioning students is always the right answer. So I find myself that before I'm about to make a statement, I pause and I turn that statement into a question that allows them to voice themselves, right? I do see that there is a question in the chat about non-educator and mentorship. I do want to let you know that the mentorship structure, if you will, is close to being finalized and identified to be in a shared out position. So information on that will be available on the website, and it won't be limited just to schools or community partners or anything like that. So kind of stay tuned on that. And I'm glad that Jess, you put in the chat the info@ltgovcc.org. That is the email to send your questions to. So I'll follow up on that for you.
I'll hop on that real quick, Kristen.
Thank you.
And Jessica, I'm the sort of first line defense as those come in. I see a little bit of a back and forth with Jen. Mitchell, will definitely do some more follow up with you tomorrow on that.
I want to also put in one plug for us not feeding the ideas too much. Jackie, you've graded create projects. I've only done explore so far, so hopefully this year create. I've also done Technovation judging and a couple of others. You can tell when kids come up with their own ideas. They're the exciting ones. They're the ones that don't look like everything else. As teachers, we think about what we've seen. And when we get a difficult situation with a kid that freezes, we'll go back to what we've seen. And as a result, when people are grading and looking at these, they'll see a heck of a lot of the same thing. And those are normally the ones where we gave the ideas. We suck at it. Sorry. Our kids,
yeah, that's definitely a good point.
And far more talented and far more introspective if we give them the chance to be than we are.
Well said, for sure, Betsy. Thank you for that. A couple more questions in the chat. A couple are just logistical things that I'll address, and Matt, maybe you can hop in on that last one about the recordings. But in terms of registering, the challenge has 3 levels. There's the concept challenge, which will just be a submission by April 30th. Then there'll be the prototype challenge and the development challenge. Those will require registration into an online portal in order to build out your submissions. And soon, and Matt, you might want to follow up on that as well, there'll be a collection of, there'll be a YouTube channel with how-to videos on that registration process for students and groups that want to participate in the prototype or the development challenge. Students are able to work independently or in a group. I believe, Lynn, that's what you were asking. And in terms of what most students do, this is the first time we're running this challenge. Last year we had a concept challenge only. So I'm not sure what most will do, but I think most are teams from last year, if that helps. And Matt, the recordings to this webinar, I believe, will be underneath the listing on the resource.
Right on. Yep, you bet. They're on the ltgovcc.org website, and they're in the resources section right next to where the webinar was posted. I think the first one you can actually see, it says watch now, and that will take you to a recording of it.
And the groups, Kristen, are no more than 5 kids within the same grade band, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
All three challenges are due on April 30th. That is, we kept it single deadline. It's confusing enough with 3 levels.
I see the question about the material. So everything will be officially released this Thursday. Although if you go to the students page on the LT.gov website, the vast majority of the detail there is outlined, but there'll be a link to the concept challenge, which will be a Google form, and there'll be a link to the Launchpad, which is where we'll handle the prototype and development challenges. So check back on the 25th.
Yes, and those will be also the help videos, but the materials in terms of the questions that the students will be expected to answer, as well as what I like to call the deliverables, are outlined already on the student page of the website. I believe I addressed everything in the chat. Sometimes when things pop in, I might have skipped something over. There's a lot of gratitude, as we all have, for you two ladies for presenting this incredibly important topic this evening. So please don't miss out on that.